Well, for the past few weeks, we have been focusing on the state budget process and following it, but that's not all that's happening in the state legislature.
Besides the 16 legislators involved in the budget committee, there are 116 others representing you and working on other legislation. And this session, they're considering hundreds of bills. So joining us now to talk about how these bills get put together and eventually potentially become law, we have political analyst Brandon Scholz. So let's just start, Brandon, with how bills are made.
Hello, welcome back. Good to see you.
Nice to talk about something besides the budget, but we'll get to that too. So yeah, that's a great line. How a bill becomes a law. I mean, and everybody just thinks, well, we hear about these votes, we hear about these bills, so it just happens, right?
Right.
It is a long, long process, and it really starts with an idea. It really starts with somebody saying, gee, I wonder if, remember that old cartoon, how a bill, we need a bill for this?
Bill to Capitol Hill, remember that?
Yeah. So it could be an idea from a person, from an organization, from a convenience store, from a doctor, from a carpenter, you name it, from any organization, and somebody has an idea that says, I think we could make something better, or I think we could stop something from being so bad. And they go to a legislator, and they sit down, they talk about it, and they try and work through, is this good? How is this going to work? Who supports it? Who might be opposed? And if they get to that point, then the legislator will say, fine, let's go get a bill drafted. So they send it out, and somebody writes the official language, and it comes back, and then the legislator goes about looking for support in either the Assembly or the Senate to get what they call co-sponsors, so it shows support. Then they also generate support from the organizations and the people outside of the Capitol to show that it has momentum, that has a lot of different support. So that's where it all starts.
And this is all before it ends up on the floor.
Oh, way before. We probably don't even have a piece of paper until that point. But that is about the point where you get all that support, and then you get a bill number. And once you get a bill number, then you're ready to rock and roll. This is when, you get a bill and you get into the process. So the first process that we'll see on the chart that we put up is going to a committee. Now, each house, the Assembly and the Senate, have committees that have jurisdictions over every issue you could think about, whether it's agriculture, healthcare, insurance, broadcast, you name it. Everybody has jurisdiction over these issues. And so they assign that bill to that committee. And the first thing they do is they have a public hearing. And in a public hearing, anybody can come testify, whether you're opposed, whether you're a citizen, whether you have it, in the game of something that's going to happen to that bill, whether you're impacted by it, anybody can come and testify for and against. And it's wide open to the public. I mean, we've seen hearings that have gone on for hours and hours because people have traveled from all across the state. So once they get to that point, then the committee takes a little bit of a break. They usually come back in a week or two and have what's called an executive session. That's when legislators sit down and say, well, I like this bill, but I want to do this. So they might try an amendment, or I don't think we should do this, or I'm 100% for it, or I'm 100% against it. And legislators will have that discussion, and it's usually just legislators. Sometimes they'll call in somebody.
So what are some of the key bills this session, though, that could actually make it to the governor's desk? A lot of people are asking.
I'm going to get to some of those, because you got to get through, for all, right now we have about 300 bills in the Assembly and 300 more in the Senate, and there's going to be another 1,000 or more that'll come. You got to get through this first hearing, and you got to get through the exec, because in the exec, that's when they vote yes or no on this bill. If they vote no, it's done. You're over. You can try it again, but for now, you're done. But if they vote yes, that's when the next part of the process starts. And then it gets scheduled for a vote on the floor of the Assembly or the Senate. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated, because you have two houses, right? And so if you have an Assembly bill and a Senate bill, both bills go through the same process in their own houses, from committee hearings all the way up until they get to schedule for the floor. And then they get scheduled for a vote on the floor, and if the Assembly passes the bill, the Senate can vote to pass the Assembly bill, or vice versa. But if either house changes any words in their bill, so the Assembly has a bill they passed, and the Senate has a bill that they amended and changed, and the two don't match, it's not going anywhere until one house or the other changes their bill to match up, or they drop their bill and they adopt the other house's bill.
Wow.
Because when the governor gets the bill, and that's the next step after the legislature passes the bill, when the governor gets the bill, it has to be from both houses. It has to be the same. And that's when the governor goes into either signing the bill and it becomes a law, or the governor says, no, I just don't care for this, and he vetoes it and goes back to the legislature. Now, the legislature can override.
Okay. We need so much more time to talk about this, Professor.
Yeah.
But Very quickly,
Yeah.
this explains why it's taking so long.
Right.
And we're going to continue to follow it with your help. That was actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, we do. And the budget will take the same course. They have to pass the exact same thing, send it to governor, and then they have a chance to override it. So when you ask why does this take a long time,
That's
it's
why.
a very long process.
Thank you,
Thank
Brandon.
you.
Well done.
You bet.